Hello, friends, and welcome to the Weekend Catch-Up Club, the coffee morning show brought to you live every Saturday, direct to Facebook and Twitch, and available later on demand at youtube.com/gamertagged and podcast services such as Amazon, Google, Apple Podcasts. We're everywhere. Today is a bit of a different podcast. Today I'm joined by two of my favorite people in the world. It is Mr. Liban Ali and James McClellan. Lads, how are you?
Waking up.
Waking up. It's an early Saturday morning. This one is not pre-recorded. We're doing it live off the back foot. It's going to be a blast, right? I'm hoping it's going to be a blast. We had some good banter before we actually started.
Yeah, there were some interesting conversations in the run-up.
Liban, let's start with you. How are you doing, pal?
I'm doing well, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. It's been a good old time. It's been an interesting year for some video games. I've been playing quite a bit. I've kind of promised myself lately to finish the game I started before I get any new ones. I actually broke that promise straight away because I bought another game after that. But I reinstated the promise after that, and now it's been going okay so far. But
so
no,
your backlog's not too bad then? Your backlog's just manageable or drowning or up over your head?
Oh, no. I was drowning since day one. Like that's still really bad. It's just from here on out.
Yeah. It's been ages since we've had you on the show as well. So I'm so happy that you're here and we're back.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on, man. I know we've got a lot to talk about, don't we?
We do have a lot to talk about. Yeah. Jamie, you've been off drinking loads of copious amounts of cider in Somerset, but you're back on the show.
I'm surprised I survived the trip, if I'm honest. I did go. I went back to my old stomping grounds for a couple of weeks and caught up with some old friends and drank at least one small town dry. It got really silly, but it was fun. And it does mean I've once again just put a massive gap in my gaming schedule, and now my pile of shame is threatening to consume my home. Because I've still got games that I haven't finished from the 360, so
yeah,
it's never happening, is it? I'm never getting there. I picked up 2 games last night for Steam, and I haven't played most of my Steam library. So
you just have to get to a point where you're okay to just like admit defeat and let it go, and try and move on. But it's so difficult because I like to hold on to games like you guys do and say, I will get to that eventually. I fully plan on getting to these 200 games that are sitting in the back catalogue, but never happens.
No, that's the thing. I still, like, to this day, every now and again, I'll sit there and think, I've really got to go back for the Mile High Club achievement in Modern Warfare. And it's like, it's not happening. One, I can't do it. It's just, I cannot do it. I have actually cried trying that achievement through sheer threat. And 2, the 360 is not even here. My kids have got it. But yeah. One of these days I might.
Backward compatible. Actually, you could do it all over again because didn't Modern Warfare get remastered a little while ago for the console? So you could pop all those achievements and trophies again.
I don't want that.
Double wins.
I don't want
that. The worst thing is when, like, I don't know if any of you guys played Halo Reach on the Xbox 360. There was a real bastard of a trophy or achievement on that one where you had to jump off a cliff as one of the end levels, and you had to do an assassination on one of the elite enemies down at the bottom, and you had to time it just right so it would stop you from dying from the fall, and it would trigger the animation sequence, and there was an achievement that popped for that. And I'm pretty sure myself and my friends did it like first time, but the achievement didn't pop. And apparently it was like a known bug. And then I think our friend Paul did it. And then it was playing something else like years later. Like I'm literally a decade later on the Xbox One. And it randomly just popped on Xbox Live. It gave him the achievement all those years later. But that was years of frustration to say, I've done this trophy or this achievement so many times. Why is it not popping? Why am I not getting the points? I need those gamer score points.
That was if they came to hear me beg.
See that Jamie's got this crazy memory to even remember the name of the trophy, or it's just the trauma I've resurfaced for you.
A bit of both. That achievement is basically the reason I'm sat here talking to you now, because that achievement, it was writing. I wrote a very rambling blog post about how horrible it was, on my blog, my personal blog back then, and that was when I got contacted by Al and joined Stick Twiddlers, and that's how I ended up writing and stuff. So that was painful. That took me far too long, and it hurt me deep inside. Yeah.
Was that a case of Al saying, Jamie, I love the way your prose captures the rant in your voice and your personality. Come work for us.
It was more, to be fair, it was more contact of, do you fancy writing a couple of bits a month? Because it's quite funny seeing you suffer. And I was like, yeah, that was essentially it. I mean, I've boiled it down a little bit, and that hasn't changed because I will regularly get messages from Alan going, I found a game. It's absolutely terrible and broken and horrible. You're going to hate it. You'll love it. And then I have to play it for some reason. And half of it never makes it to YouTube or Twitch. He just sits and watches me play it in Discord going, yeah, suffer, my child. That is just, yeah, he's a sadist, but we love him.
So your business card, the job title was "You came to hear me beg" or came to watch me beg. That's the job title.
I called it "If they came to see me cry."
Yeah. Wee man, quick segue. What's a game or achievement? I'm just throwing this out there because we didn't prep for this. This is just a random conversation like we always like to have. What's a game or achievement where you felt like crying to try and overcome it or get a particular trophy or something like that?
Man, do you know what? I have a recent example actually, and it comes from Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. Ooh. So that was an annoying one to get a platinum for. Right. So there's a particular bit in that game. There's a part of the game where you're supposed to, in order to get a certain trophies, collect all the golden bolts.
Yeah. And
there's this one bolt inside this kind of test tube that you're supposed to push this button, and then it kind of you do this little game and it comes out. Okay. But every time you go towards the button, it sort of glitches and then the bolt disappears. So I Googled it. Yeah, so I Googled it and it was a known glitch. So luckily, thank you, autosave. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
I had a previous save file, and so I could go back and I could keep going further back until hopefully I get to a point where the game was working correctly. And so thankfully, after a couple of tries, I say a couple, maybe like 12 tries, I've got the achievement eventually. But that sort of things, it's super annoying, especially when I was just right there at the end and I couldn't get it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for me, it's every game. Every game makes me cry somewhere. Especially if it doesn't have an easy mode. I need an easy mode these days. I actually just finished Ratchet and Clank, and I had to no shame here. I had to knock it down to one below the normal difficulty. I think they really make you feel really like empowered with the difficulty setting names, and it's like the rookie ranger mode or something like that, rather than the normal ranger mode. But that game, okay. We are going to talk about at length about like PlayStation 5 and the next gen gaming because we're almost a full year into it. But Jesus, that game is phenomenal, like really phenomenal. But it throws like constant, like tons of enemies at you. So I can like on the even the normal difficulty, it gets like really quite overwhelming. And I was just like, oh my God, who do I shoot first? So I thought, I'm not going to knock it down to one of the lower difficulty levels and just like hoover up all of these enemies, feeling like a badass Lombax space ranger, and just have fun with all of these like crazy inventive weapons. But God, there's so many. Like I cannot for the life of me play the Souls games. I wish I could. Oh. I just don't have the gene. I don't have the skill. Like maybe my I've got too many cataracts in my 40-year-old eyes. I have maybe too much arthritis in my fingers. I don't know. I just can't seem to do the Souls games. And I applaud anybody that loves them and adores them, because I can see why they're like so well loved. But oh my God, talk about rage quitting. As soon as I like the one little imp character just like stabs me in the back and it's insta death, I'm like, oh no, not for me. But I wish.
I mean, no, I don't blame you, man. Like I couldn't finish Sekiro. I couldn't do it. Especially I got towards the end, but that final boss I just like, nope, forget this, not doing this.
You got far then.
I prefer my mental health. No, I'm not doing this. I'm not playing this. I did play one Souls-ish game, I guess, and that is Bloodborne. And I did manage to complete that. But that felt a lot more doable for some
Yeah.
reason. Not necessarily in any sense that it was easier, because I died a hell of a lot of times. But if I was to recommend any Souls game that you should actually try to finish,
Yeah.
it would be Bloodborne. It's a really good game.
Yeah, in fact, all of our friends, Sean, he loves Bloodborne and the Souls games as well, and he actually tried to take me through Bloodborne via co-op, and I think for anybody that is struggling, that's definitely the way to play those games, because you can go with somebody who's maybe a little bit more seasoned, and then can warn you about things that are coming up ahead, and like really kind of walk you through it. And then, because for me, I love them just mostly on a purely aesthetic viewpoint. You guys know I love design, environmental design and stuff, and concept stuff, and all that kind of jazz. So I just love it. I love the Gothic architecture and like the creature design and everything. I just want to like appreciate that. I would love like a tourist mode for the Souls games where I could just walk through the game, pinging off the enemies like they're just like little annoying flies, and I can just like walk around as if I'm on some kind of safari trip, just walking through Yarnum and all the different twists and corners of the world. That would be amazing for me, but of course that's never going to happen. If only.
See, I lasted maybe 10 minutes with Dark Souls, the first one, and then just it wasn't for me. And I like a challenge in games. It depends. Halo and the Gears series and Call of Duty, I never play on anything below the highest difficulty setting. It's become partly a point of pride at this point as well, but also because I've played those series to death. Like I find that unless I'm playing them on hard, there's not a hell of a lot of a challenge going anyway. It's kind of my gameplay and my sort of but other stuff like I'll happily play, especially when it's real story driven games, playing it on the easier settings so you can really experience that story instead of just being constantly stressed by running the same bit 16 times just to get 20 seconds progression to get to another checkpoint and then giving up because you're exhausted. Just nah. And that's what Dark Souls was for me. It's not the game. I've watched people play them and enjoy it. They look amazing, but for me, I would just get too wound up trying to play it and wouldn't enjoy it. So, but maybe one day I'll. I know.
So speaking of Halo, Jamie, as this weekend is the second Halo Infinite flight. Have you had a chance to dip into that? Because you're our PC advocate right here. Liban, I'm going to saddle you with the PlayStation 5 banner to speak on behalf of that. I've got a Series X. I just picked up a PS5, so it's all kind of fresh to me. But yeah, Halo Infinite, I think on the PC it's been absolutely crushing. Like a really, really good build is the latest one I've heard anyway.
Yeah, it's looking at me. I haven't touched it. I, in a weird move for me, because previous Halo titles, I fought tooth and nail to get into the betas for them. I would have done things that I would not be proud of to get into those games. But for this one, I've watched video footage and I've read an awful lot of bits and pieces, but I haven't actually gone hands on myself. I'm kind of waiting. I had a bit of I was a little disappointed to find out that we're not getting co-op campaign at launch.
Sure. It's such a staple with Halo, for sure. It's a big disappointment.
It is. And every single Halo campaign, I have completed Legendary difficulty with a group of 4 at release. It has been something that is, obviously, group of 2 at first, when it was just 2-player co-op. Everyone excuse me bouncing about, by the way. I'm old and broken and everything hurts. But yeah, it was always what we did. We played through them on the campaign on co-op and beat it, and then we would go back and start digging into the multiplayer. So a couple of my friends are picking up the Series X for playing Halo. I'm probably going to be playing it on PC. I'm going to bite soon, and I'm going to end up buying a Series X. There's no way around it. It's going to have to happen, because I've been Xbox for a long time until I switched to PC a couple of years ago, or back to PC. But I'm probably going to be playing it on PC at release, certainly. And we're just diving straight into the multiplayer, and it does look phenomenal. It looks like old school Halo multiplayer, which is what was missing a little bit from 5 and 4. 4 was still pretty good. 5 never quite felt... It was fun. It was a really fun multiplayer experience, but it never quite felt right.
Yeah.
So this looks a lot closer to what we like from Halo. So yeah, I'm very excited. I'm always excited when there's a new Halo game coming. So
totally, it's such a banner title and mascot for the Xbox platform, and I really applaud 343 for like doing these flights, these multiplayer flights, because that hasn't. In recent memory, it hasn't really been done before. Usually you get a beta, but it's like a inverted commas beta. It comes out like a month before the game is coming out. Therefore, realistically, is there much that you can actually address? It's more like a multiplayer demo. Whereas they've actually been really quite open about the production of Infinite. I mean, obviously a lot of that was from the backlash of poor Craig, the brute from a year ago or so, because remember it was supposed to come out last Christmas, or actually no, it wasn't supposed to originally come out for the launch of the Series X. It was going to be the first time in forever since the original Xbox that there was going to be a Halo to launch with the system.
Yep.
And they took that decision to just like push it out. It's like, nope, we're totally pulling this, and that is impressive in itself. But then they've been really open to say, okay, we're going to start doing more really public multiplayer tests to get Halo insiders, of which you can, like, anybody can sign up. It's not like it's really gatekept or anything like that. But they're just allowing people to like broadcast all of the footage. It's not like a closed one where you're not allowed to share any gameplay footage. They're heavily promoting like feedback from the players, from influencers, from media coverage to, okay, tell us what you think about the game, like what needs to get addressed. And like we're constantly honing and crafting this multiplayer experience. And that's been really quite exciting to see over like multiple weekends of when they've released the latest builds of the multiplayer component. And obviously this weekend is exciting because it's the first time everybody's got a chance to play Big Team Battle. And Big Team Battle, I don't know about you, Jamie, and Liban, but Big Team Battle is the Halo mode. That is Halo. Like, the other ones are great. Capture Flag is a staple. King of the Hill, of course. What's the one where it's just like obviously TDM, Team Deathmatch. That's a standard as well. But it's really, Big Team Battle was always like the separator for Halo. And I'm excited to maybe jump in later on tonight. If you guys are around, maybe we could get a couple of games together as well to see exactly what Halo Infinite is like, because it'll be my first experience to checking it out. And I've heard, not that I have a 120 hertz monitor, but apparently on the Series X, it runs at a pretty much near locked 120 if you've got the capability to run it like that way. Obviously, most people will be playing it at 60, but it just looks sensational. And what was surprising, because I just watched a Digital Foundry analysis just before coming on here, actually. And even on the base Xbox One S is a locked or near locked 60. Obviously, they've scaled things back. There's a resolution hit, of course. There's shadow and reflections and been pared back and everything like that. Some like land geometry has been tweaked and everything like that to get to run. But I mean that is like the One S is a really underpowered machine. Let's be honest. It always has been from the very beginning. And the fact that that's running Halo Infinite at 60, even if it's, I mean, I saw the videos and it still looks really sharp, like really good. It's just amazing to see how scalable certain developers can really go. And it makes me wonder how long Microsoft are going to be continuing to maybe support the Xbox One S and those old generation of consoles, because we're still in a very long transition phase of supporting like previous generation consoles. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that kind of stuff as well. Start with Liban, if possible.
I mean, considering that they've done it for so long now, I don't see any reason for Microsoft to stop doing that, especially now as these consoles are still not so easy to acquire. So I would assume people will still be holding on to the consoles that they have and still want to be able to play those games that everyone else are playing as well to a certain extent. And I believe that with Microsoft, I think they know as well that once things are kind of, that supply chain is back to normal, that consumers will go and pick up these newer consoles eventually. So as of now, especially as you got Game Pass on PC as well, I really don't see any reason for them to stop. I think that's been their whole, that's what's made them so intriguing, I think, this generation as well. It's just how far back they're willing to go, like how much support they're willing to give to the older platforms and to the older titles. So I would be very surprised if they just came out like 2022 January saying that, okay, we're not supporting this platform anymore, that would be a huge shock to me, quite frankly. So I don't see any reason why they would stop, to be fair.
How long do you think they will support for? Because I think it will be longer than previous generations, just because of the very nature of chip shortages and, as you said, how difficult these machines are to actually get a hold of. Do you think it'll go into 2023?
If I was at that executive table, says like, hey, how long are we supporting these consoles for?
Shareholder Liban Ali enters the phone call.
Hey, I would have them at least continue to do so until the end of this generation. And then, considering what their plans are to do for the next generation, then they may have to stop supporting certain consoles just because of lack of it just won't be able to keep up with the tech at the time. Obviously with the with gaming technology in general, it advances so quickly. Just especially in the last decade or so, it's had such huge leaps and bounds. So I would say at least until the end of this current generation, and then from there, by that time, a lot more people have been able to pick up the systems. A lot more people have been able to upgrade to more powerful systems, and they could kind of justify that without getting like that PR hit in a way.
Yeah. Jamie, I'm torn about this because on one hand, as Liban says, it makes complete business sense. Like, you don't shut the door on 100 million install base for PS4s to only do PS5 games. And I can't remember what the Xbox was. It was like in the 50s to 60s or something like that, millions for that install base. Whereas Microsoft have always had the messaging to say Xbox is the platform. It's not necessarily hardware as a platform. So everybody will be getting taken along for the journey of Xbox. So that's obviously amazing. But at the same time, I've just finished Ratchet and Clank on the PlayStation 5, right? So it's all very fresh. It's all very like new and sparkly. And I cannot imagine that game being a cross-generational game on PlayStation 4. It wouldn't feel the same. It wouldn't be able to do what it does so mind-blowing with that instant loading, the switching between these different kind of portal, but they're full worlds. We've seen kind of like that portal-y stuff being done before, but not when it loads in seamlessly an entirely new world. And that obviously raises the debate about, well, are the visions and things being held back because they have to still have hooks into the previous generation, which is very old tech, can't do that kind of stuff. But on one hand, I'm like, well, that means that everybody who cannot get these consoles can still play the next God of War, the next Horizon Forbidden West. They're still going to be able to play that. And before I was fortunate enough to get my PS5, I was in the bandwagon. I was like, yes, excellent. I'm not going to miss out. I can still play these games because it's coming to PS4. But now I'm on the flip side of that, very fresh to say, okay, now I've got a PS5. Screw all you PS4 owners. I want the best of the best at all times, right? It's that kind of like stupid mentality of, but like, what could they have done with God of War if it wasn't maybe like anchored back a little bit on the PS4? Would you be able to seamlessly jump from the different Norse realms, like seamlessly? But saying that, God of War on PS4, they did it so well where you enter this kind of void-like world of the world tree, and that's how you go to the different realms. So it's masking the loading in these really clever ways. It's a tough one because I don't believe that we should be like abandoning previous generations so quickly. But at the same time, you see the results from something like a Ratchet and Clank, and you're thinking, man, that is a next generation example of where gaming can go without any loading limitations, streaming in of assets, all this kind of stuff, and to get that experience. That's a kind of long-winded question asked to Jamie.
I think it's a difficult balance between, as you say, you don't want to close off a player base, and yet you want the developers to be able to get the most out of the hardware. So the more that they have to balance for, we have to make sure it works for this, and this, then you are potentially shackling them somewhat from doing everything they could with it, like you said. So it's definitely a balancing act. I think for Microsoft, it's a little different because Microsoft are pushing everything to being service-based.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's not going to be all that long until we're paying a monthly subscription for Windows. as opposed to like, I mean, they're moving stuff. I mean, obviously Office 365, even down to to stick my IT hat on for a wee bit. The Azure cloud services and the things you can do with Azure programming and that. Now, a friend of mine who's a developer was running me through some of it, giving me a bit of a refresher course in what I used to do for a living, and it's really interesting. But it's all very much based on you only pay for the runtime, you pay for the connections to the SQL database, you pay for this. Like, they want everything to be at point of contact. They want it to be monthly subscription. They want that. So with that, theoretically, with the cloud gaming and all of that becoming more of a thing as well, I mean, you can pick up your phone and resume your Xbox game. You can go to your... There shouldn't be anything to stop you from sitting on a 360 to really push the limit, but to sit on a 360 with an app on it that connects you to the cloud gaming service and then play the latest game.
Yeah, well, that's what they're doing, right? That's what Microsoft have already announced, that if you've got like a really old Xbox One hardware, they're going to be trialing the app to get the Series, whatever it is, like the Series Experience app on your old system to then just do cloud streaming of the latest games on old hardware, which that is kind of mind-blowing as well, to think you would never necessarily ever have to buy hardware again. And that obviously, I mean, it will eventually be like a little HDMI dongle or something that you plug it in your TV and then you're good to go. That's the Xbox cloud, like the Xbox ecosystem experience.
I think that's why the Xbox at this point becomes a ready-to-go PC in a box. Again, to really simplify it. So obviously, I built my PC. Many trials and tribulations, but I built my PC, and I can upgrade that as and when. But essentially, that has a shelf life, but it's not like a console. I can keep upgrading that for a good long time. I can tweak it. It'll run stuff. It's future proofed for quite a while, so I'm fairly safe on that front. The Xbox, obviously, consoles have always had a lifespan, and there comes a point when they are done. And that lifespan has been getting progressively longer with each generation because they start to say, as we've seen, it's like, well, we're going to release for both. The lifespan of the console becomes similar to a PC if they push everything to Surface-based, because you buy a new console when the one you've got degrades, as electronics do, and breaks down, or you're so far down the line that it's too clunky to run the latest version of the app that lets you connect to the cloud with all your games in it. So Microsoft, I think I don't always love everything they do when it comes to pushing stuff to a service, but again, that's usually from my IT side of my life that they can be a bit problematic for me. But when it comes to the gaming, I think they've got the right idea. Obviously, I'm not a PlayStation gamer. I haven't had a PlayStation since the PS1, so I'm a bit behind on that. So
just a couple of generations behind then.
Little bit. I think the last time I picked up a PlayStation controller was to play SmackDown Here Comes the Pain. So that was
great.
Oh, hell of a game. Lovely. But going, a little bit previous. So I don't know. I think service-based is where a lot of it's going. I think service and streams and cloud. The entire landscape of gaming has changed massively since we all started out. As even since I've got guys I play Valorant with at the moment who are like in their 20s, and it's changed hugely since they started gaming, despite the fact that they've just been born. So it's an interesting one, but I think I think it does. There comes a point when you have to say we're no longer supporting that console as far as running things on that hardware. But it'll be interesting to see where the future of the service-based side of it goes and how long consoles last then. So,
yeah, it's true. It's true. Yeah. So let's get on to our main kind of topic of the show, and that is, next generation gaming. We're almost a year down. Pretty much. I mean, was it November last year they launched, and we're now into October, so we're pretty much like the full first year of both systems, the Xbox One Series X and S, the PlayStation 5 digital disc versions, depending on which one you've been lucky enough to get your hands on. Both were always very different propositions. Xbox was obviously pushing heavily into Game Pass, the subscriber model, as Jamie's mentioned just earlier. PlayStation was very much the traditional model of on a game by game kind of selling you basis, which is fine, which is obviously, we're used to that. PlayStation have had some incredible bangers exclusively on their platform, and I really do applaud them for that. They've got features such as the DualSense, which offers really interesting haptic feedback. I was very much on the fence of, it's just a gimmick, it's going to be nonsense, it's just like fancy rumble, get out of here with that, no way. But I gotta say, I have been enjoying the crap out of my PS5 for the past week and a week and a bit, but I also love my Xbox Series X. So, Liban, tell me about your year with your PlayStation 5. How have you found it? What have you been playing? What have been your favorite titles so far?
Yeah, so I think it's always interesting with these new console launches. Obviously, especially everyone's always pretty wary of the first batch, especially. That's where you usually kind of need to iron out any bugs or system crashes. Thankfully, I bought the PS4 at launch and the PS5 at launch. Thankfully, I've had no issues whatsoever. Nothing that's been reported anyway, so I've had none of those problems. I think the first game that I played, pretty much like everyone else, was Astrobot.
Yeah.
Because that was obviously pre-installed on the system, and that was designed obviously not only to be a fun game, but to show off the DualSense itself. And I was just like you, Ross. I was like, the DualSense, like, it's a little, like, it's a party trick. It's a gimmick. Like, it doesn't make sense. It's essentially the 3D on the 3DS. That's what it is. Like, am I gonna have to hold it a certain way so I get the full effect?
Turn it off instantly after one game. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Is it just gonna drain the battery? Like, am I gonna get only 30 minutes out of this? But surprisingly, it is the real deal. Like, it actually adds an impactful experience to the gaming, especially on Astrobot. Like, you feel that little robot's feet tapping on different surfaces. You feel it when he jumps, when he shoots his laser. If there's any environmental weather going on, like wind hitting you, you feel that on the controller. It's kind of freaky, actually. Yeah. It's like sorcery in a way, but no, it's just something vibrating on the controller. That's all it is. I think the most I've appreciated from it, I think Astrobot has done it the best thus far. Yeah. Most other games that I've played that have used it so far used it more in a sense of how weapons feel when you use them. So the first time I noticed it properly is from Resident Evil Village. Obviously in that game you collect a bunch of different weapons, handguns, snipers, shotguns, etc. And depending on the weapon you're using at any one time, the trigger gets real heavy. And the recoil is really huge. So I think little bits like that I really do kind of just add to the experience, and I can understand where PlayStation were coming from when they wanted to do that. I'm just glad it didn't become a gimmick in the end, that I would just end up turning off after one game. I think obviously with the PlayStation 5, especially when it came to the PlayStation 4, things like loading times is a huge thing as well for me. We talked a little bit about Ratchet and Clank earlier, how fast that game was. Yeah. Obviously, we had a game like Ghost of Tsushima before, who was already doing super fast load times on the PS4. Now it's even quicker, which is okay. Like, that's amazing. I played on the PS5 Miles Morales as well. That's a really good looking game on the PlayStation 5. And I think the thing I'm most interested about, especially when not only just a PlayStation 5, but these next-gen consoles overall, is how, you get these promises of, you get your 4K and your 60 FPS, but now they're adding all these different modes of, you've got your quality mode, you've got your performance mode, and kind of giving you that choice of what you want to play. Obviously, in a perfect world, we'd all want to be playing, 20K, a billion FPS. But unfortunately, then they're not going to be able to pull that off anytime soon.
You need an RTX 3090 for something like that, pal. Yeah, and that won't fit in a PlayStation 5, even though it is big enough, right?
That won't, unfortunately. And recently, obviously, they've updated it. You're able to expand the storage. I've checked a few videos on YouTube. Thankfully, it's nothing difficult to do. You literally just open the thing up and slot it in, put it in, and it formats it. But so far, it's been pretty damn amazing. I'm not gonna lie. You know, they have a solid number of titles lined up. I believe, obviously, they did want a lot more to come out this year exclusively.
Sure.
But unfortunately, it just couldn't happen, which for reasons beyond that. And I'll always be in favor of devs, you know, being given the time and space to finish their projects and avoiding crunch and, you know, just having just overall a better well-being in their workplaces. So I'd always be better for that and let the games get delayed. That's absolutely fine. But I think 2022 for the PS5, especially you got your Horizon Zero Dawn. It hasn't been confirmed, I guess, but your God of War Ragnarok, and just a slew of other games possibly coming out. So I think as a start for now, and it's about to be a year in. Is that right? November? Yes.
Yeah.
It's about to be a year in. I think it's done pretty phenomenal, to be honest.
Yeah, I have to admit, I mean, as much as I adore my Xbox Series X because of the way that it just gives you everything on Game Pass, or pretty much everything on Game Pass, like every first party game will be there day and date. That's amazing value for money. And I think as much as I love like the Miles Moraleses, the Returnals, the Deathloops, the Ratchet and Clanks, like to buy those games at £70 a pop, it's the price of the console again. And don't get me wrong, I fully believe in generations and, you know, paying for value. I don't really have a problem with that. But at the same time, on the flip side, you've got essentially Game Pass that are giving you all of those high-end first-party games for like a super low price. And it's in the current climate, it's very hard to justify multiple games for a system when you can get them all for, well, if you cheese the system, like £1 per month for Game Pass Ultimate, right? And then you're getting everything. And I love that Xbox have taken that approach, and it separates them as two very, very different commodities. And I love that there is a differentiation there between what they're offering, because then it is not just a case of buying another platform, which is essentially the same as the other platform, but it's just more like preference or something like that. I still love the Xbox One controller above the DualSense. But I'm talking more of like ergonomics more than anything. I just find it way more comfortable.
Yeah.
But having said that, this is a weird one for me as well, because on the PlayStation 4, I always preferred the face buttons and the bumpers of the DualShock 4, and that actually goes for the same with the new DualSense controller. But I always preferred the size and the shape of the Xbox One and the triggers of the Xbox One. So weirdly, I'm in this kind of position where anything that is like a shooter or uses triggers heavily, I think I'll be always on the Xbox for that kind of stuff. But games like maybe like Assassin's Creed or Kena, Bridge of Spirits, which we're gonna get into as well, I love the DualSense controller for that, because it's mostly bumpers and it's mostly face buttons. So it's this weird, we still haven't got to a point where we can have one, like the best of both, sadly. I would love that. But where am I going with this? The Xbox Series X, I find that as great a console as it is, right now it's still lacking those like big banger exclusive games that make headlines, that are going to like make an easy sell for everybody. It's great to say Game Pass, but you kind of have to curate Game Pass yourself and find out what's on there to then, you know, play the games and add that to your backlog and play games like that. It's phenomenal value for money. Nobody's second guessing that. But over on PlayStation, you just have to rhyme off a few games there, and they're all showcases for what that system can really do. And it is impressive. And the DualSense, what you've mentioned there, Liban, as well, it's like the nuances to the feedback that controller can give you is very, very impressive. I had a little play around with Metro Exodus, which I played on the Xbox. Love it on the Xbox. It got upgraded for both next-gen systems. It looks and plays even more impressively. But one of the DualSense specific features that I really fell in love with was, like, there's a weapon in the game which is a pneumatic pump. You have to kind of pump the trigger to essentially get compressed air into the rifle to then fire it, and it dissipates the air like a hydraulic pneumatic rifle. When you're doing that, you actually get increased resistance on the trigger to simulate the pressure building up in the hydraulic gun. And I think, man, that is so smart. It's so simple. And if you don't experience it, you're not really missing anything, because it's still, it's still a hydraulic gun. You can still fire it and just have to pump it and stuff like that. But the fact that those motors, or whatever kind of magic it is happening within that controller, can actually make a resistance on the trigger or fully lock it up as well is really interesting. And I thought that's so cool. And I'd love to see developers really exploring just little ways, little enhancements to the controller feedback. And I loved Ratchet & Clank's feedback as well, because, and I think this goes the same for Returnal actually. Like each weapon has a primary and a secondary fire. Nothing new, right? We're used to primary and secondary fires, but traditionally I think it's mostly hold the left trigger and then you get like the secondary fire, things like that. Whereas now you can half press the trigger, but instead of you having to judge the half press, it actually has a stop, and then a little bit more pressure, it will go full trigger. It's thinking, that's so... It feels weird at first, but it's when you get used to it, it's freaking awesome, because you get this little half pressure all the time, and it's a hard stop, but then it will, like, I guess it opens a gate or something like that in the trigger to then allow you to fully press it, which does a secondary fire mode. And I'm thinking, okay, the tech is there to really explore and be really, really interesting. And I'm super excited for what that can roll into for future games for sure. And going back to Xbox, I really hope that 2022 and of course 2023 will be the year that all of these Xbox studios start putting out just banger after banger, because Microsoft has made so much investment into some amazing studios, but this year is still a little bit bereft, with the exception of one of my personal games of the year is Psychonauts 2. I think that is truly wonderful. But it's hard to really think of another big Xbox game that is like a showcase for the console, other than like all of the games that are just running so much better and so much, they look so much better on both systems. And it is a shame that Deathloop is not cross-platform. It's on multi-platform. It's locked into PlayStation 5, and I think that is a real shame. It's a real...
I've actually wondered about that. Is that like... because obviously Xbox own Bethesda, right? I don't know if that's actually a full-on exclusive, or if it will eventually come to Xbox at some point. Like, I feel like that's a bit of a gray area. It's kind of weird, because it that was kind of locked in that in-between time when it was announced that Bethesda would become a part of Xbox. So, I mean, personally, I think it will come to Xbox. I'm just not sure when. What time or contract expires, it'll eventually be on the platform. But I think with Xbox and its exclusives, it's like I tell certain people, it's like they're playing the long game here. They're first, they're gonna make sure their platform is accessible as possible to as many people as possible, no matter what they're using, wherever they are. Give them a whole bunch of things to play through Game Pass, and once they've like got everyone in, just like they'll put the cheese in the trap and got everyone to jump onto it, and then they're gonna slam you with all these exclusive games, and in a way will make an almost perfect platform. Once they figure out those exclusives, they're undeniable at that point.
Yeah, totally. And you raise a really good point about the accessibility nature of the platform. I think we've talked about this, I think, separately on previous shows and stuff like that. But it takes out the gamble of people who need the accessibility features in the games to say they have to like ask around, like, is this game accessible for me? Do I have to spend £70, find out I can't play it, and then try the rigmarole of returning it? Whereas Game Pass just says you can just try anything you want, and if it's not for you, it's not for you. You don't have to worry about the stress of paying a full price for a title and then realizing, oh my God, there's loads of button pressing, there's loads of multiple tapping, there's no accessibility options to turn that into just one press and hold, or an auto skip QTEs, or increase the font size for menus and things like that. Like basic accessibility features, which a lot of games still haven't managed to formalize, which is a huge shame. But I love that Xbox and Game Pass just kind of takes the worry out of all that kind of stuff, and the fact that it can be bought for like, because they're always doing sales of like 3 months for £1 or 12 months, and then convert your gold into Ultimate and get it even cheaper. It is such a good model, like, and I think there will always be the audience there that want to buy and own the games, and that's totally fine. And there's been I've seen conversations online to say, well, Game Pass just makes you not actually own anything from your games library. But saying that, like, yes, that is kind of true, but you can still buy the game if you really, really like it and really want it as part of a thing. But you can just try anything you like, not knowing if you're going to like it, end up falling in love with it, and you can always still buy it. You know, you can always own the disc and things like that if it leaves Game Pass. It's really, I mean, like, you can't fault it, really.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, people who say that, you know, oh, you don't really own the game. Okay, yeah, fair enough. But how many people often play a game and then go back to it again afterwards? You know, it's like, it's rare. Like even for me, who I prefer physical over digital, regardless. It's just a thing for me. Like it's the same with me. Like out of all the games I own, there's going to be very few of them that I've played multiple times. So when they do say that, you know, oh, you'll never own the games, well, are you going to play it again? No, probably not. You know, you might play it for 5-10 minutes and that's it. You know, and as you just mentioned, obviously, if it's a game that you really did enjoy, and for some reason games do leave Game Pass from time to time, and it's a game you really did enjoy, yeah, you can always just go and buy it. Then you could go get that physical. I think that's the biggest strength of Game Pass is, as you mentioned, it's just your ability to just kind of jump in. You know, you're just a kid in a candy store, right? Yeah. You're just a kid in a candy store. You're seeing all these cool games, like especially ourselves when we were younger and we were going, you know, what's the example I'm going to use here? You know, who hasn't been around for a while? Woolworths hasn't been around for a while.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Woolworths. You know, me popping into Woolworths, you know, back then when they had the N64 games. Pick and mix. Oh. Yeah, and you know, oh my gosh, that pick and mix. And you just go to the like shelf of all the video games, and your eyes are beaming, and you just want to play everything, but you know you can't because they're all like 50 quid each or whatever. Yeah. But Game Pass kind of just takes that completely out of the equation. And if I was someone, you know, buying a Christmas gift for a kid or whatever, you know, in terms of like a games console or such, and be like, well, and I was obviously clued up on the technology and what it can do. Yeah. Xbox is like, it makes it kind of easy to kind of go that way, especially one, you can almost play on almost anything. You know, if that child already has a decent running PC, all they need is Game Pass, and that's it. So I think people, they do talk about how good Game Pass is, but they don't realize how good Game Pass is.
Yeah, I mean, you're right there. It makes it the easiest recommendation for parents at Christmas time, when if they're stressing, oh my God, which one should I get, the PlayStation 5 or the Xbox Series consoles? This is assuming that they can actually get them, of course. You know, we're kind of disclaimer there. But you know, but it's like, okay, you have to, like, even if you got a couple of kids, like, do you get them the PlayStation 5? Then you have to buy another controller, which is same on both, but that's fine. Another, what, 50 or 60 pounds. And what, do you only buy one game for that? Yeah. And then all of a sudden you're up to like 550, 600 pounds. Yeah. Whereas Xbox Series X, let's go imagine hypothetical, it's the top end, so 450, then another 50 or something for the controller. You're at 500 already. And then, okay, oh God, no games for this thing. What are they going to do on Christmas morning? Game Pass, like an extra 10 quid max kind of thing, right? For the month or a 3-month trial or whatever. And then all of a sudden you've got access to hundreds of games. Like absolutely, you can play absolutely anything. It's not a case of, oh, I really didn't want that game. I hate this game. I've got nothing to play on Christmas morning. Little Timmy is crying his eyes out because he doesn't
Little
like
Timmy.
Spider-Man. He doesn't like Spider-Man, right? So he's but on Game Pass, he's got absolutely, they've got absolutely anything, all ages, all demographics have got absolutely anything to play on Game Pass, and I think that's just such a strong proposition for anybody stressing about what to do at Christmas time.
No, absolutely. I think just considering all of this, and obviously with Xbox and their studios, and what I believe is their literal decade-long plan, they're going to be a real strong contender next gen, or even like mid-gen, or even next gen. They're going to be a real strong contender. I feel like they played it really, really smart this time. Obviously, with everything that happened on the previous generation, that happened. It's done, whatever. But just getting people invested into the platform as much as possible, in as many ways as possible, is like, whoever came up with that, genius, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Genius. Because they thought, okay, we're going to get all those people in. We're going to have such a huge player base. And then, boom, hit you with the big games they're going to get you excited about. And then it's complete. It's just complete.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, you think it must have been like one hell of a risk to say. Everybody's talked about the Netflix of games, right? But then Xbox have actually managed to see it through and deliver it. It's kind of wild. So Jamie, kicking it over to you, because Liban and I have been like hogging the show here. How rude of us!
Yeah.
How rude!
No, I'm loving it.
From the PC side, do you have Game Pass on the PC side?
Absolutely.
And have you been making use of it and enjoying it? And tell us about that experience from that side.
Oh, it's okay. Apart from and Microsoft, if you're watching, put Minecraft for PC on Games Pass. It makes no sense that it's not on there. Bugs the hell out of it. But yeah, I've got. So I had picked up Game Pass when I was still playing on Xbox, and or still alternating between the two, and then sort of. Realizing like, oh Christ, there's an entire library of PC games I can make access of now. If I'm paying for it, I should probably use it. It has been amazing to play games that I probably would never have got around to. See, one of the great benefits I think with PC over console, or PC as compared to console, because I cannot stand the console wars, or or the modern equivalent thereof. But one of the benefits with PC is definitely the sheer volume of games available to you. Like, obviously, there are thousands of indie titles on PC that make it to console, so there's always something to play. But with Games Pass, obviously, there's too much to play, and you can't play everything. With Games Pass, stuff pops up on there that hadn't really even been on my radar, and I'll see someone mention it, or you see games getting a little bit more attention than they might have otherwise have done as well on streams and YouTube content and stuff like that, because people could just pick it up and play it because they're already paying for that monthly charge and they're good to go. So I've played I've just recently downloaded Surgeon Sim 2, which I wanted to play, but it probably would have taken me a while to get around to, but I grabbed that a couple of days ago. I'm playing that later this weekend. Avengers just hit Games Pass.
That's right. That's a big one, actually.
Yeah, that's big. Yeah.
So that's getting played because I love me some Marvel. Grounded is fantastic. That's on there. You've also got the EA Play bundled with it as well. So I was, for a while there, me and Alan were back to Battlefield 4 randomly. I mean, I own it on 360 and I think Xbox One, but I don't own it on PC. But they added EA Play to Games Pass, so went and downloaded all the Battlefield games and started playing through those again. And it's just a huge library. And I do understand because I've always been a bit weird. I've never minded buying digital games. Always been fine with digital content. I when it comes to my film collection, I have a ludicrously large collection of DVDs. I can't let go of physical media. But even if you buy a digital game, there is the argument that you still don't really own it because the platform can disappear in a heartbeat, and it's happened with certain things. There are games that people have owned digitally that they can't access anymore because everything went away. There was a big brouhaha with, I believe it was with Traveller's Tales, with some of the stuff that they had, like you see, some time ago now, and I think it got fixed eventually. But so the way I always look at digital content is kind of, I've got it and I've got access to it, and I'm fully aware that when the inevitable collapse of society comes, I'll have to go back to cranking a hand generator to power my DVD player to watch my physical media, and I'll live with it. But yeah, it's really interesting watching. There's a lot of exclusives for consoles as well. That, like Kena is exclusive to PlayStation 4 and 5, but it's on PC through the Epic Store, so I can grab that and play it. I would have been able to if I was still solely playing on the Xbox. There was something came to Xbox, and I can't for the life of me remember what it was, but there was something came to Xbox recently that one of my friends was saying, I'm not going to be able to play it. It's not on PlayStation, but I looked, but it's also on PC.
Yeah.
So we kind of sit in a little bubble just outside the exclusivity battles as well. Not always, obviously. There is some stuff that we just don't get. Spider-Man.
Yeah. It's a sore topic, that.
Yeah. I'll never not be salty about it. It's the first time in years that I've seriously considered buying a console for one game. So,
well, you should. It's worth it. It is worth it.
Yeah, it's. I've got a horrible feeling it's going to happen eventually, but we get to escape a lot of the exclusivity, which is nice. The downside, obviously, with PC is that when you've got your console sat there, it's going to play everything that's released for that generation. Whereas I will at some point have to battle the Vancor in the pit to try and lay hands on a 3090 to upgrade this thing. So swings and roundabouts, but no, Games Pass is, for my money, like Games Pass is absolutely the best value in gaming currently. There's nothing that surpasses it. Yep. It is phenomenal, and it's I've got a wealth of games for the Xbox and a wealth of games for the PC, and they keep adding stuff, and stuff does rotate out, but not as much. And if it's getting played a lot, they just sort of leave it there. So yeah, it's been a good year for gaming.
It really has. Yeah, considering like so many of the big hitters that you would think about have been pushed into next year, it's still been a phenomenal year for gaming, and very much on the indie scene. There seems to have been given more space to actually breathe. A lot of the indie games that maybe wouldn't have gotten a lot of attention because everybody's focused on, like, had Horizon come out this year, had God of War come out this year, they would have been like massively overshadowed, and things like Death's Door would have got completely overshadowed. Hades came out this year. That might not have been overshadowed because of how popular it was and winning the Game Award last year and everything like that. But like, there's such a rife passion for like what indie devs are doing, and it seems to be. I don't know about how you guys feel about this, but for me, it feels like this is very much the time of indie games doing way more like interesting stuff, but also like the quality of indie games has just ramped up like you would not believe. And you think, is this really an indie game? Which is staggering. And there's so much more coming as well, which is just freaking amazing.
I mean, probably, I think I've sank something in the region of 400 plus hours into Phasmophobia now, which is what? Like,
it's a lot of ghost hunting, dude. Are you not like scared, terrified?
Do you know what? I've said it before. I will say it again. It is the only fictional creation that has ever actually creeped me out. I've always been. It's just one of those. I don't have an issue with horror. I'll watch any horror film, and I love horror, and I'll watch that till the cows come home. I'll read any horror content I can get my hands on. I'll play any horror game. I love all of it. But Phasmophobia is the only one that's ever made the hair stand up on the back of my neck and made me jump and made me genuinely unsettled while playing, which is amazing. But it's that was one guy who put that together, and he's got a couple more guys on his team now, and they've recently done a huge overhaul on it, and it just got to the point. I mean, 400 odd hours, or is it? It might be 250 hours. I know I'm a level 900 and something, which is just stupid. I'm wasting my life, but it's it just got to the point where it was still fun to play, but the creep factor was dying down a little bit for us. We were going in and we were getting used to stuff, and you'd still get caught out occasionally, but it wasn't quite as... And then they changed everything, and it's back to being utterly terrifying. I walked into a house, and I literally walked straight through the door, and the ghost sidestepped out of a room next to me, singing Ring a Ring of Roses in this horrifying, haunting voice. I made a noise like a cat being put through a mangle. Like, I have never made a sound like it in my life. So it was... Oh, it's brilliant. But that's, Phasmophobia. Hydra Near is incredible. Like, that is one of my favourite games of the past year. It's a brilliant digging, mining, crafting type game, but you can channel water to power things, and it's awesome. Wobbly Life, that weird little surprise one that hit me. It's just a really fun little run around town doing stupid things type game, with a bit of like Gang Beasts physics sort of to it, and it's just phenomenally good fun. I mean, half of what I've played, the majority of what I've played, basically beyond time spent in Valorant and Final Fantasy 15, with a wee bit of Elite Dangerous thrown in, most of my gaming time has been indie games for the past year.
Yeah. Well, because of your passion for indie games, I was recording a future episode of the podcast with founder of Spider Lily Studios, called a chap called Els White. And so he's got a Kickstarter project on at the moment. The demo's on Steam. So Jamie, this is more for you. And the game is it's a visual adventure novel called Schrodinger's Cat Girl. And I think you got to check it out, because I think it's up your street, and I highly recommend checking it out. I think it's on Steam.
I will. Yeah, I'm sold by the name.
Yeah, I thought you'd like that.
Yeah, I'll take a look. I love it. I mean, another one that I found as well was Littlewood, which is kind of reminded me of Stardew Valley, but it's set post. It's a game set after you've beaten the bad guy. And it's the hero returning to town and just trying to make his town a little bit better and relax and do okay at life. But he can't remember how he beat the bad guy, and the bad guy's there as well, and he can't remember the fight, so everyone just kind of gets along. And it's just nice, and it's relaxing, and it's got some great humour to it. And Cozy Grove. It's another one, Animal Crossing-esque, but with a little bit of dark humour in there. The mayor in Cozy, if anyone watching hasn't played Cozy Grove, play Cozy Grove, because the mayor in it is one of the funniest things to happen to me in the past year. He's just, it's such a good game. But like I said, there's so many games I've played that are just, and they're just nice, excepting Phasmophobia, which is just terrifying, but they're just nice gaming experiences as well. It's been very relaxed, and for a guy who spends a lot of his time, screaming at the screen playing, like Valorant and doing competitive first-person shooters and stuff, it's really nice to sit down sometimes and go, I'm just going to go tend to the crops and talk to this ghost of a bear. It's gaming's weird, but it's awesome. So many good games out there.
It totally is. Liban, what are some of the things that you're looking forward to over the next little I guess maybe next quarter of the gaming sphere? December into February kind of time. I can't actually remember what's all coming out. There's so many stuff all coming out all the time. There's
a lot coming out. Like, it's kind of made my head spin a little bit. Especially, I think this month, not this month, the previous month. What month are we in? September. A lot came out in September. A lot's coming out this month as well. I think me personally, I'm looking forward to those exclusives. I just am. Yeah. I haven't played Horizon Zero Dawn. I have it. I will play it eventually.
Get off my show. Why are you even here?
But I'm looking forward to Forbidden West.
Okay.
Forbidden West, God of War Ragnarok. Currently, I mean, they haven't said nothing. I am really looking forward to whatever Arcane do next. I've been playing the heck out of Deathloop.
Well, they're making that vampire game, aren't they? Something Bloodfall or something. I can't remember the name of it now.
Hunt?
Something. Yeah, I think you're getting two games mixed up. But they're doing like a vampire multiplayer game, which looks like supernatural powers and vampires, and that looks like, and it's Arcane, so it's got to be like freaking awesome.
I really like the look of that.
Yeah.
looks amazing. I like just playing through just Deathloop as well. I hope to see a game like that again. That game's been a heck of a ride. It's been just twists and turns everywhere. I think, and I guess we'll include them as well. You know, from Nintendo's side. I don't know if it's actually already out. I do want to play Metroid Dread.
That looks like October. I think it's like the end of October or something that comes out, or this month, or a couple weeks or so thereabouts. Yeah, it looks really cool.
It's weird because I made a video not too long ago about Metroid, or one of the trailers, and then I mentioned obviously in that that I didn't play, and it's true, I didn't play a Metroid game before. You know, this is the first time. It's just Nintendo has all these amazing IPs.
Yeah.
They just don't really do much with, and it baffles me. And so, and so I just got a whole list of replies. It's like, okay, start with this, and then play this one, and then play this one, and then you've got to play this one. So I'm currently running through Super Metroid right now, and that's been a lot of fun. It's very old school, as you can imagine. A lot of exploration, a lot of secrets, a lot of finding weapons and such. But I think the biggest thing I'm looking forward to is exclusives and catching up on some of the games I didn't get a chance to play, like Demon Souls, even though I probably won't finish it. But I want to be that person that says, you know, I did try at least. You know, I tried it at least. And God, there's another game that I do have that I have not played yet. It's about fruit or vegetables, and you're eating them. When you eat them, it becomes a part of your body.
And now I'm really curious. What the hell?
Yeah, what was it? It had a really funky theme tune. It came out on PlayStation Plus. I can't remember for the life. I see the picture in my head, but I can't remember the life of me. But if I remember, I'll let you guys know. But I'm looking forward to playing that. And yeah, so also, and probably to your disappointment, Ross.
Oh, okay.
I have Kenna, but I haven't started it yet.
It's fine. Because backlog.
Because basically at the top of the show, when I mentioned, obviously I made a promise, right, to myself that I would finish games first. So I got Deathloop, right?
Yeah.
I was like, okay, cool. I'm gonna finish Deathloop, then I'm gonna play Kenna. But halfway playing through Deathloop, I bought Kenna. I was like, God, I just gotta have the game.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
It's just, it's like, I just looking at it on the home screen, it's like, oh, it looks amazing. Like, I'm not gonna play it yet, but stare at it. So I'm looking forward to playing that. And another game that you, Ross, might have heard me talk about from time to time is Judgment. Like, I love the hell out of Judgment. You know, the studio that makes the Yakuza games.
Yep.
I don't know what it was, but I just really clicked with that game. You know, it's a brawler to an extent, and some detective work. It's not the most extensive detective work you would do. It's more like, oh, look at that bit of blood on the floor. Where does the blood trail to? Oh, there's a handprint in the wall with blood on it. Nothing too much, but I think what that studio does really well is they introduce really interesting characters, and they tied their story elements together in a way that just keeps you guessing so much, all the way up into the finale of Judgment, which I really enjoyed. So I'm looking forward to Lost Judgment. Yeah. Thankfully, because I did make that promise to myself that I haven't actually bought it yet, so it's not on my home screen or nothing. I have no physical of the game yet. I have nothing yet. Not until Kenna's done. Yeah. I also do have, I'm looking forward to playing The Medium on PS5 as well. I was hoping to get into that over Halloween, especially. Yeah, that's just a fun little game to play during then. Yeah, hoping for some screams as well. But it's just as you guys have said, there's been a lot of stuff coming out. I think now more than ever, gaming has been at its strongest. It's probably at its strongest now than I've ever seen before. Yeah. For an industry that experienced such a severe crash not too long ago. Right? If you really think about it, right? Not too long ago, that's experienced such a severe crash that people thought that we would never see it again. Look where we are now.
Come back stronger. Yeah,
come back stronger. But I think for the rest of this year, there are certain bits and pieces coming out. But 2022, I think, is where it's going to be at.
Yeah, there really are. There's a couple of games on my list that I'm stupidly excited for, and they're not even probably the biggest games or anything like that. But one is the Guardians of the Galaxy by Crystal Sorry, by Eidos Montreal.
So,
who did the Deus Ex games.
what do you think of that? Because I read a lot of, there's people who are like, yeah, this looks really cool, and people are just like, oh, you only play as Star-Lord. So like, what are you guys' thoughts on that? Because I'm really confused. It looks cool to me.
Yeah, I'm really loving the humor and the banter of the team that they seem to have captured, because it's coming straight from the comics with a little bit of a nod to, I guess, like the movies and stuff. But I love the fact that it is you're Star-Lord, but you're not the like most powerful member of the team, right? You're the captain, literally the commander. So you're more like issuing commands to your squad mates to then do like the moves, attack this person, do that thing. And there's RPG elements there. There's the crew dynamics and things like that as well. So you can piss them off, or they can like side with them and work on the relationships there. And apparently it's going to have an absolute killer 80s soundtrack as well. So I don't know. It strikes me as what I wanted Marvel's Avengers to be, because I always wanted that game to just be a single player game. Yeah, and I'm really interested in seeing how Eidos Montreal like stick the landing for Guardians, because it's doing really well in a lot of previews that I've listened to and watched and things. So I'm really optimistic for that. And visually, it looks really, really pretty as well. But I really hope that they just kind of nail the gameplay with the humor of Guardians of the Galaxy. And I just hope it's going to be a lot of fun, a really fun, strong single player Marvel game. Because, well, I was going to say we don't really have very many, but we've got Spider-Man 1 and 2. We've got Wolverine coming as well by Insomniac, which looks freaking amazing. Yeah. I know, right? That's way out. That's going to be, I would imagine that'd be like way about 2024 or something. But the other one I'm actually stupidly excited for is Hot Wheels Unleashed. I don't know if you've seen any of this. It's a fun arcade racing game with the little tiny cars like Micro Machines, but obviously Hot Wheels. But visually, it is so incredible, because it's the plastic tracks that bend and corkscrew and stuff, and it's all done like the kind of grounded scale, Jamie, where it's these rooms. Yep. You're in the bedroom kind of settings, all these different room settings. So everything is like super small, but everything around you is like super massive. But they've really captured like the look of the metal of the little die-cast cars, the plastic of the tracks, and so to see this thing in motion, it looks so good. And it's one of those silly games for me that came out of nowhere, and I'm thinking, oh my god, this looks so much fun, because I had Hot Wheels as a kid, playing the tracks, and there's a track builder as well, right? So you can make your own like ridiculous tracks. And I just hope it's going to be really good. I think it's been reviewing really well. I think it's now out, but haven't picked it up yet because, like you, Liban, the backlog is already getting ridiculous again. So I need to kind of stop that. It's so difficult.
It's so difficult.
Yeah,
it's so difficult.
Anyway, you were going to say something, I think, about Wolverine, or was it Guardians? I can't remember now. No,
me or
lost. I think of it. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Let's wrap up the show there, because it's been an absolute blast of an hour and a quarter chatting with you, fabulous gentlemen. Liban, where can people get in touch with you and see your content and gaming chat and all that kind of jazz?
Yeah, so I am pretty active on Twitter. So at the Liban Ali. Feel free to reach out to me, to DM me. If there's anything I talk about or any content I do, I will showcase it as some sense on there. If you have any questions for me, feel free to reach out. I'll be happy to answer anything.
And Jamie, where are you at these days?
Oh, there's me. Hold on. There. At Al_Vim, and also at Midgame Crisis on Twitter, which is where everything gets shared across both, because I'm a shameless self-promotion whore. But yeah, and then obviously we're on Twitch and YouTube, and again, it's just Midgame Crisis. Everywhere you look, we're slowly trying to take over the world.
Awesome.
Slowly.
Well, slowly but surely, chipping away at that world domination.
Get there, bit by bit.
Yeah. So yeah, Liban.
I have a question. Just a final question for the both of you, right? My brain is just bursting with video games lately, so I have questions now. Just a quick one. All right, so do you know how EA is kind of bringing back these older titles now, remaking them and such? We're seeing it with Dead Space and such.
Mm-hmm.
If you guys could pick a game that could come back, that would get that sort of treatment, do you have one in mind? Me personally, the only really games that EA had at that time that I really did like was probably their Burnout stuff and Fight Night. I really loved the hell out of Fight Night.
Fight Night. I'd love Fight Night to come back, yeah.
Especially when it got to a point where you could put your friend's face in the game and then knock them out. That was magical. That was magical. If you guys do have a game in mind, do let me know.
Jamie, I'll let you go first before I answer because I've got one in my mind.
X-Wing versus TIE Fighter.
Ooh.
If I could pull a game out of EA's past and have it in... Because when I saw Squadrons, that was kind of what I was hoping for. And for what I've seen of it, because that's still on my pile of shame, but it is available in EA Play through Game Pass, so I'll get to it. But that was kind of what I was hoping for from Squadrons, and it didn't look like it was quite there. And I love a space combat flight simulator, and I've been playing. The other game I've been playing is No Man's Sky. I've been back to that, so I've been playing that, which I like, flying around space and Elite Dangerous exploration. But I miss stuff like X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, conflict-free space, that kind of era of stuff. So yeah, if I could pull one out of EA's past, I think it would be X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, flying down the engines of a Corvette, blasting it, desperately hoping it blows up before I do. Just, beautiful times.
Yeah, I agree with that. That'd be absolutely awesome. And I hope Squadrons actually causes a bit of a resurgence for those old LucasArts games to come back, because that would be awesome. For me, I don't know who owns it, so I don't know if it's EA specific or not, but I would love the Soul Reaver and Legacy of Kain games to come back. Come back hard with a full remake.
Yeah, man.
And the reason why I think that may happen at some point is because games like Kena and Bridge of Spirits are very much that old school style of Zelda game, Okami, Jak and Daxter, very much kind of that era of adventure platforming game. So I would love to go back to that style of game, but that looks as amazing as a Kena or as a Dead Space remake.
Yeah.
And if they do the Legacy of Kain series and the Soul Reaver series, oh god, that'd be so good, because it's got that style of like puzzle solving, platforming, adventuring, combat that feels old school, but in a really good way of old school, with like some more kind of modern concessions to mechanics and traversal and things like that. That's maybe the only thing that the Kena maybe doesn't stick the landing on, is some little things like jumping. We're used to characters being able to mantle or grab the ledge and pull themselves up, whereas Kena is very old school in the sense that if your feet don't get above the platform, you're going to miss the platform, that kind of thing. You know what I mean? It's like, it's very much of that old style of video game. But saying that, Kena Bridge of Spirits is easily one of my games of the year this year. I just was so drawn into it, so absorbed by the characters, the animation, how beautiful it was, and the really fun and challenging combat. I just loved it. Loved it to bits. So I'd love to see developers go a little bit old school, but keep the presentation like next gen presentation style. Yeah, I'd love that. Okay, let's wrap it there, guys. Thank you to Liban and Jamie for joining me today. This has been episode 61 of the Weekend Catch Up Club podcast. Big thank you to everybody who has been tuning in today. If you have enjoyed this video today, like, follow, subscribe, help us grow the channel so we can get more great guests on. But for now, I'll be back next week with another amazing guest. Take care and happy gaming. Bye-bye.